Hey guys, welcome to this episode of the Happy Knitting Podcast. My name is Julia and I'm coming to you as always from Germany. Today is Saturday the 9th of March 2019 and I'm so glad that you're joining me today to talk about some knitting, some spinning and some yarny things. And welcome if you're a new viewer. I really hope that you will enjoy this podcast if you're watching for the very first time. And if you're coming back, thank you ever so much for being a regular viewer and possibly subscriber of the podcast. So we have a lot of stuff to talk about today. As usual, I'm super psyched. I am just having my first cup of coffee today and it's already starting to work and I'm feeling a little bit all over the place, but that's never a bad thing. Also, it's 20 days until the wedding, so I think I'm allowed to feel all over the place because yes, that's crazy, that's insane. But more about that later. So today, first of all, I will talk about some admin stuff, followed by some finished objects, works in progress, spinning, acquisitions, and then life in general stuff will always be at the end. So those of you who only want to see knitting, or maybe knitting or spinning, but not acquisitions, or you don't want to listen to me waffle on about nothing, that will all be at the end and you can just watch whatever you like. So, first of all, we have a group on Ravelry, which is the Happy Knitting Podcast group, and that is always linked right underneath this video, as well as my project pages, because I don't do any show notes. Everything that I talk about can be found in my project pages. So I will link both of these places there, and if you do want to get in touch, Ravelry is always the best place too. So in that group, we are having a knit-along at the moment, which is the Stranger Brews knit-along. And that is a knit-along for all of the Stranger Brew collection patterns by Tin Can Knits, as well as the actual Strange Brew pattern, which I am wearing right now. And someone pointed out last episode that there's actually even a free pattern in the collection, which I think is a hat pattern. So those of you who have not been able to join in because you didn't want or weren't able to buy the pattern, now you can join in too. Tin Can Knits, who are the designers, they were super generous and offered up one copy of the whole ebook. And we had a thread going and I closed it this morning, and thank you everyone for your responses. I asked everyone what their proudest knitting achievement was and what their next challenge would be. And it was super, super inspiring. I almost want to start another challenge knit-along immediately. Anyways, I drew using the random number generator and I drew number 18, who is GoJo63. And that is Jo from Northern Ireland. So congratulations, you have won. She knit a beautiful sweater and had quite a moving story with it as well. So I really think you will like this ebook. And what I will do is I will just give you a Ravelry ID to Tin Can Knits and they will send out the pattern. So congrats and thank you to everyone who joined in. And of course the knit-along is still running. I think we're running it at least until the end of March, but I think really we're going to run it either until April or May. So you have plenty of time to join in. I haven't really set a date yet, so take full advantage of my cluelessness when it comes to knit-along and just cast on. All right, let's have some coffee and then go into some FOs. So, for finished objects, can you see it? I finished my Strange Brew sweater and I couldn't be more excited about it. So this is the Strange Brew sweater by Tin Can Knits. And if you don't know, it is a sort of recipe. It's a genius pattern. I've talked about it in the past, so I'm not going to waffle on about it today. But essentially it is a recipe and you can then, using different weights of yarn, using a million different sizes, choose to either knit a sweater top down or bottom up. You can do shaping or no shaping, you can do different kinds of increases. And most importantly, you can design your own colorwork. So that's what I did for this sweater. It's kind of not looking its best thanks to my awesome microphone. But you can see I made up my own pattern. I knit this top down. And I just kind of made this up as I was knitting it using Excel sheets. And if anyone is interested in exactly the charts that I use, which I just figured them out. I did upload them onto my project page. So if you are knitting a size M or you're willing to do some minor changes because the numbers vary depending on your size, you can do the same if you want to. But really, this is just a blank canvas and you can do so many things. And I knit this out of a yarn that gave me so much headache because I really wanted to knit a fingering weight sweater with it, but I just didn't get the right gauge. So I kind of used this as a backup solution, and I'm so happy I did because I just love it. So the yarn that I used is Phenol yarn by Rauma. I think it's called Phenol PT2. I knitted at a DK weight gauge, so I had about 22 stitches per 4 inches on a US size. I don't know the US size. It's a 3mm needle. I think that is a US size 4, but I'm not quite sure. Anyways, that's what I did. I knit a size medium, and I love it. It's a nice length. You can't really see it. The sleeves are kind of moving up, which happens a lot with my non-superwash sweaters. But I love this pattern so much, and I'm so happy with the finished sweater. I actually knit most of the sleeves while listening to AWS Cloud Workshop videos, which is hilarious. So this will always remind me of my AWS certification in case you're an IT nerd. What else is there to say about it? I love it. I did my own sort of decreases, shaping, whatnot. And yeah, I really like it. It was really funny. I blocked this, and Rauma, I love the yarn, but it can be, I think it's perfect, but I know, for example, Kai is very sensitive and he finds these yarns very scratchy. And I put this on this morning just when we were heading out, and he touched it and he was like, oh, that's so soft. And I was really confused, but he was just making jokes, and he thinks this kind of is like the thing that you grate your cheese with. But I love it. I think it's soft. I think it's great. It's super warm. It fussed up a little bit in washing, and you know how much I love my non-superwash woolly yarns. So yeah, this is done. I love it to pieces, and yeah, I feel like I'm just rambling on about it now. So yeah, it's done, and I'm very happy about it. So yeah, that is the only FO for this week, and I'm very happy to have this off the needles. I kind of made a big promise last week when I said I would finish it, but I actually made it, and yeah, very happy to have knit with this yarn as well, because I got this in Oslo last November with my friend Marion, which was amazing. And I had just really been wanting to knit with that yarn rather than just have it sit in my stash for years and years. And now that I know I like it, I'm going to see how it wears over time. But I could definitely see myself knitting more sweaters out of this yarn. Alright, moving on to works in progress. I have 5 works in progress, some of which are new cast-ons. First of all, I cast on another sock, because last week, you may remember, I had no sock on the needles, and that was just crazy. So I decided to do some obligation knitting. My sisters both picked yarns at Christmas time for me to knit them as a pair of socks after Christmas. And I finally got around to starting one of the pairs. This is for my sister Elisa. And she picked this Regia yarn, which is sort of like a self-striping white with a navy stripe. So I just knit a plain vanilla sock, and because I wanted it to be a little bit more spicy, I put in a super variegated hedgehog fibers heel. This was left over from another pair of socks that I knit in the past. And this is what they look like. So the first sock is done, the second one has not been cast on. And you guys know how much I like commercial sock yarn. It's really interesting. I've noticed it a lot of times in the past already, that especially with Regia, the quality changes so much. So this is the ball. And this skein, I don't know, it just feels like a really rough yarn, whereas I have knit a lot of other pairs of their sock yarns and they're fine. It seems that, I don't know, they just have a lot of variation in terms of where they supply their wool. So I didn't love knitting this one, but it's fine, and I will always love Regia. So this is their Nautic color, and the color code is 1737. So the first sock is done. I knit this within a couple of days. I am doing 60 stitches on a US size 1 2.25mm needle, And this is just a regular fish lips kiss heel. So yeah, that's it for my sock knitting. I really need to cast on. I don't want to get into second sock syndrome again. Next up, what's in here? I have actually no idea. Oh yeah, in here is my Easy One sweater. This is a pattern by Jorge Locatelli called the Easy One, and I am knitting it out of this yarn, which is by Lana Grossa. It is called Slow Wool Lino, and it's an 85 merino 15% linen yarn. And I think last time I showed this to you, I had just about split for the sleeves. So now I've just been knitting on the body. And this is where we are. This is a very wide body. Can you see? It's a super oversized sweater. I'm already knitting the smallest size because I didn't want it to be so super oversized. And now I'm starting to throw in some decreases, but it's going to be a pretty big sweater, which means that the rounds on this are super long, you guys. Not sure how I feel about it. I'm really enjoying it. I'm really enjoying the yarn. It's really, really fun to work with. It's very soft. I love the color, but I'm just noticing that I've been knitting on this quite a bit, and you can see where I split for the sleeves up here. This is kind of where I am. So I've made some progress, but not a ton. And you can see I'm doing a small cable down the side, which isn't in the pattern. I just threw that in because I want this year to be my year of cables, and I want to knit more cabled things. And I'm taking it super slow and just adding small cables to stuff. So this is where we are. Like I said, I'm doing some decreases now along the sides, which I think will look quite nice. I had a bit of a ripping party last Sunday. I will talk about another project that I ripped out later. But for this, I picked up the neckline. You're supposed to do a rolled neckline. And I wanted to do a ribbed one. So I knit, first of all, I had big trouble picking up the number of stitches that you're supposed to. I just had to do it like a ton of times. Then I knit my ribbed neckband, and I bound it off, and it was too tight. So I ripped out the bind off again, bound off again using a different method, and again it was too tight. The truth was that I probably didn't pick up enough stitches, so that was already, yeah. So I think I did that about 3 times, and then I decided to rip out the entire neckline. And then I re-knit the neckline, doing the rolled neckline, which was written in the pattern, and I bound off. And now it's kind of too loose. I think it'll be fine. I just don't really like the aesthetic of it so much right now. But I think once I block it, it'll be nice. And this is a loose sweater, so I think I'm going to like it. There's about a 20% chance that I might need to rip it out again, but I'm trying to avoid it. So we'll see how it goes. Right now I'm just trying to make some progress on the body, and then maybe I'll block it before adding the sleeves, and I'll just see how I feel about it then. But yeah, I did a lot of knitting, ripping, and re-knitting this week. But yeah, that's my Easy One, like I said, by Jorge Locatelli. And this is obviously the fingering weight version because there's also a bulky Easy One. Next up, let's talk about another sweater. I kind of hinted at this last week. I had just finished my sweater quantity spin, and I decided to just cast on right away because, especially with spinning, when you put your yarn in stash, you kind of forget what you did, and then later you realize maybe I should have spun it a certain way, and you don't remember. So because I'm planning to spin more sweater quantities of yarn, I decided to cast on my handspun right away to see how it actually knits up. So just so I get a better feeling, and then if I made mistakes or if I need to make adjustments, I can make them for my next spin. Sorry, you guys, words. So the yarn that I'm using, if you didn't watch last week's episode, this is a Handspun Corriedale. The fiber was from Ashford, and I did a worsted spin, and then I ended up with a 2-ply DK weight yarn, and I have 4 skeins. So like I said, I cast on, and and I decided I didn't really like the swatches that I was getting, just because it was knitting up at quite a large gauge, and because it is a high twist yarn, or kind of high twist yarn, it seemed a little bit holey and uneven, and I wasn't super happy with it. I mean, I probably should have spun it woolen style rather than worsted anyways. But I decided to use the flax pattern, which is another pattern by Tin Can Knits, because apparently this is the Tin Can Knits show. And I kind of based my sweater on that. But I decided to do a texture pattern down the front and the back, because I thought my skeins aren't super even, and if I do a fun texture, which I've been meaning to do for a sweater anyways, it'll just be more fun, and you don't really see the inconsistencies in the yarn as much, and so on. So I did that. It took a while. I got down to where I was supposed to split for the sleeves before I was ready to admit to myself that I didn't like it. I think the idea was good, but it didn't really work with the yarn, and the texture was just making the garment heavier, because it was obviously a denser fabric, and I had used stockinette for the sleeves, and I liked the stockinette much better. And also I was worried about running out of yarn too early, because obviously for this quantity my yarn supply is limited. So I ripped that out again. That was on the same day when I had my ripping party with my neckline, by the way. So I ripped the entire sweater out again, back to this tiny neckline, and then decided to just knit the flax sweater without any modifications. So now I'm just knitting the flax sweater in stockinette. Actually, that was a lie. This does have a modification, because the original pattern, it has a garter stitch band down the sleeves, and I didn't do that. But anyways, I'm knitting a stockinette flax sweater by Tin Can Knits, and this is where we are. So it's kind of hard to show because my needle is kind of short, but let's see. Can you see my stitches? You can see it's not super even. I think I overplied the yarn, to be honest. It's a little bit ropey in places. Even though the yarn looks fine, it's really interesting to see that it does change a lot when you're knitting it up. So it's definitely been a learning curve for me, but quite honestly, I think this is going to be a really cozy sweater. I think it's not super perfect, but it's not commercial yarn. It doesn't have to be perfect. And I'm planning to knit this as a cropped sweater, and I don't really ever do cropped. I sometimes do slightly too short sweaters, but I've never really intentionally cropped a sweater. But I think this would be a really cute sort of maybe even no-ease sweater, and just a little bit cropped with a long ribbed band at the bottom. I think that would be really cute. So that's what I'm thinking right now, doing a cropped sweater, maybe with like elbow-length sleeves or something like that. And it may be really nice. I don't really know yet, but I like the color, and it's really soft. Because it's a 2-ply, I don't think it's going to last forever. I think this is going to become a little bit pilly, but again, that could be really comfortable. Like, it's not supposed to be a fancy sweater, it's just supposed to be warm and cozy, and I think that's exactly what this could be. So yeah, that's where we are. I have, as you can see, split for the sleeves, and now I'm just knitting down the body. I desperately need to try this on and decide if I want to do any decreases, but I think I do. I think I want this to be, like I said, a shaped sweater with some waist shaping, and then I will just crop it. How many times can I repeat myself? I'm sorry, you guys. Anyways, 3.5mm needle as usual, which is a US size 4, and after splitting for the sleeves, I have started alternating skeins. So this is my first skein, this is my second skein, and I'm doing helix knitting because I was worried that the change between the skeins was too big. So I'm just doing one round in the old skein and one in the new, and you can't really see it. I think it'll be fine. So yeah, that is my flax sweater, which is my first ever hand-spun garment. Whoops, sorry. Coffee. anyhow, I have started another new project. And this is a project that I've been wanting to do for months and months. Can you tell what it is? This is the Vivid blanket, and guess who made it? Sorry, this is the Tin Can Knits show today. I swear I didn't plan it. This is another Tin Can Knits pattern that's been out for a while. And I don't know when I saw it first. It was sometime before Christmas last year. I really, really liked it. I really liked the idea of it. And I saw that one of the samples that Tin Can Knits had made was using Jamieson and Smith yarn, which is a yarn that I really, really enjoy. And apparently I'm on a blanket kick because, like I said, I've been having this idea on my mind for a long time. And I actually got asked for a gift card from a yarn shop that carries the Jamieson and Smith yarn, which is a Lanard, by the way, for Christmas, and kind of thought maybe I will use that gift card to get yarn to make this blanket. And then I kind of forgot about it, and it never felt like the right time to start a blanket. And last week I decided that now is the right time. So I have quite a bit of Jamieson and Smith in my stash already, and I've ordered a couple more colors because they come in 25-gram balls. So they're like mini skeins. They're not super expensive. This is what they come in, and you can use one of these 25-gram balls for 2 squares. So I think that's genius. So I had some fun with colors. I got a couple for my stash. And I started it, and oh my gosh, you guys, I'm so obsessed with this. So what you do is you knit individual squares. You start in the middle with a pinhole cast on, which is genius, by the way. New technique for me, I really like it. And then you knit this lace pattern, and then obviously there is garter stitch at the sides. And then you bind off, and then you can just join them together. And I know lots of people, they don't join them until the end, and they have really smart color placement. But I just want to join it and see it become a pattern rather than collect squares for ages. So I joined mine last night. First I tried a crochet join, and I actually did the entire thing, and it just didn't really feel right. And I was going to leave it, but really I knew that I didn't like it. So I ripped it out again in the end and just joined with a darning needle, and I'm liking it much better. So I have 3 squares done, and each of these takes me about 1.5 hours, and now I've memorized the pattern. It is actually really, really fun. I'm really enjoying it. I thought that this was a pattern where I really, really wanted the result, but that I wouldn't really enjoy the process. But I really do enjoy the process. So like I said, I'm using all Jamieson and Smith yarn. This is their 2-ply jumper weight yarn, which is a Shetland yarn, which I love. Again, it is very woolly. Kai is worried that this isn't going to be soft enough for a blanket, but I think it's going to be amazing. So you can see I'm working on my 4th one right now. I'm just using 3.5mm needles, and these are so fun to make, especially the lace part. Once you get the hang of it, and you don't need to look at your pattern all the time, you can just breeze through the lace, and then the garter is just kind of relaxing TV knitting, and it's so fun. I really, really love it. I'm actually thinking about just taking a couple of these balls with me on my honeymoon, because then I can just knit a square at the pool, for example, and then I can just take them home and join them into a blanket later. So I might do that. Definitely obsessed with this. I'm really enjoying just playing with different colors. The only downside, which isn't really a downside, is that I'm obviously getting to try all the different colorways from Jamieson and Smith. Like, look at this. How pretty is that? And like, they have so many nice mild ones. This one as well. And the downside is that now I want sweater quantities in all of these. So yeah. But that is my Vivid blanket. Of course, I am blocking each square before joining it, because once you take it off the needles, it's kind of a crinkled mess like this one. But when you block it out, it's fine. And I don't block out with needles or anything. I just block it out when it's wet with my hands, and then just leave it to dry, and that works perfectly. I basically never block anything with pins, to be honest. Haven't done that in years. My last work in progress, I've done some work on it, but you can't really see it because it's kind of never ending. And this is another handspun project. I'm so happy to be knitting with all this handspun at the moment, by the way. This is my night shift shawl by Andrea Maury, who is Drea Renee Knits. And I explained this in detail last week, but this I'm using fingering weight to light fingering weight, handspun scraps for this yarn, for this shawl, sorry. So I'm just doing fingering weight yarn, 4mm needles, which is a US size 8. And I'm just using the recipe version of this pattern, so I'm just changing between the two stitch patterns whenever I like. I'm just changing colors whenever I like, and I'm not really doing what I'm supposed to be doing. But you can see I've only done this much, but it takes a while now because the rows are long. And as much as I love the shawl, I'm kind of getting sick of this combination. I kind of want to start a new one with different yarns. But I'm going to stick with it and try to make some progress on it because I think this needs to be quite a big shawl. I'm already thinking about a second one and kind of wondering if I can play with the increases and decreases to make it a different shape. And I also want to be knitting the Shift pullover, which is also by Andrea, of course, and that looks really fun as well. But yeah, that's where we are with that. Not too much to write home about, but yeah, still a work in progress. So that is it in terms of my knitting, but I do have some spinning to show you guys. I mentioned last week that I have been wanting and planning to work on my woolen spinning, especially my long draw. Sorry you guys, if you're not spinners and you're not interested, this is going to be a short segment. But anyways, I had gotten some different fiber samples and I used this one, which is a Jacob fiber, to do my first ever proper long draw in years. So this is my first try of a long draw. It is super thick and it's not very consistent. But I was just practicing. I was just getting the hang of it. Like essentially you're using your twist to draft your fiber. And Rachel, who has the Welford Pearls podcast, actually she's Welford Pearls and her podcast is the Wool and Spinning podcast. I will try to link it. She has a great video on long draw. I think it's about a couple of years old, but it helped me a lot. So this was my first try. This is only like 36 meters and 20 grams or something like that. And then I decided to take some more fiber and spin a whole skein. So this is a 100% Shetland yarn, Shetland fiber I should say. And again I did long draw and then I did a 2-ply. And this turned out really well. I think I've never spun such a lofty, airy yarn. Like, it's hard to show you guys. Let's just take it out of the skein. Like I said, this is just 100 grams, but this is like the biggest skein of yarn that I've ever made, just because it's such a light and jumpy yarn. And yeah, can you see it? It's always very hard, I find, to show you yarn, and now of course it's kind of got used to being in the skein, but it's super light, it's very airy, so it's definitely got all the qualities that you want in your long draw or woolen yarn, and I really like it. This is very springy, and I think this would actually knit up really nicely, so I think I might have to cast that on at some point as well, because I'm thinking about spinning my next sweater spin long draw, even though I don't. I find long draw very fascinating to spin, but not super comfortable. Like, I know some people always spin long draw because they think it's so fast, and I do enjoy my worsted spinning, like my short forward draw. Anyways, that's what I've been up to, mostly just practicing, and yeah. Right now I actually don't have anything on my wheel. I think I've been spinning so much now I need a little bit of a break, but I'm sure my spinning motor is going to come back very soon. So before we get into acquisitions, I have something very strange to talk to you guys about, and that is this. And no, I'm not going to lecture you on the pros and cons of Nespresso. It's just that we got these capsules. They're coffee capsules, by the way. And I looked at this one and I thought, oh my gosh, I need a sweater in this. So can you see, it's just beautiful. And I totally want to knit myself a colorwork sweater that looks exactly like this. Is that strange? Do you guys get inspiration like that? Like, seriously, let me know. So I don't know, I keep looking at these capsules because they're in our kitchen. And I just thought I had to show that to you because I think that's so fascinating. And I don't have the yarn and stash to do anything like it. And I think maybe I would have to do sort of like fancy schmancy indie dyed yarn for the color work for this, because it just looks amazing. So right now, this is just an abstract concept. Maybe I'll keep one of those capsules and come back to it at a later date. But do you guys get inspiration like that? Like you just see something that's not knitting related, but it's just really pretty, and you think that would look really nice on a sweater. Like exactly these colors, they're really nice. Anyways, very random right here, but here you go. So for acquisitions, let's talk about that. I mentioned last week that I had bought some yarn in a de-stash from a lovely viewer of the podcast. Hello. Don't know if you want me to name you, so I won't, but you know who you are. She was de-stashing beautiful yarns, and I got a couple of skeins from her. So first of all, she's in the UK, and whenever I find yarn in the EU that is from the US and I want it, I get it, because this sort of yarn I would never be able to get from the US without huge custom troubles and stuff, which I just don't get into. So this is Fiber Nymph Dye Works, who also has a podcast. Hers was one of the very first podcasts I used to watch. And she does beautiful self-strapping yarns, and this is the colorway TARDIS. I'm not a Doctor Who fan, but I love the colors, and I just really wanted to try her yarn. And like I said, this sort of thing I usually wouldn't be able to get anywhere, so I got that in a de-stash, and my friend added some stitch markers, which is adorable and really lovely. She also sent us another package of these. I've taken some of them out of the package because I'm using them, but to give you an idea, they're adorable. I think I may use some of these for future giveaways because she made them herself and they're just stunning. And then the other yarn I got from her is another yarn that I've been meaning to get but never got around to it, and that is this yarn, and this is Brain Freeze. What is it? Oh no, oh no. Now I know. It's, sorry. Do you sometimes just forget what you're talking about in the middle of a sentence? This is yarn from JC Rennie, and I've been wanting to try JC Rennie yarns for ages. Apparently they were the first ones to do the sort of like super soft yarns that you get from Holst and those places. Don't know if that's true, but that's what they claim. And this is their JC Rennie Unique Shetland. And I bought this yarn in the de-stash, and then only later found out that there's quite a bit of, I wouldn't say trouble about this yarn, but again, I'm a huge Knit British fan of the podcast, and they talk about how there are Shetland yarns, which are obviously from Shetland fiber and Shetland sheep, such as this, such as the Jamieson and Smith yarn. And then lately, people have been selling Shetland type yarn, air quotes. And this is what this is. So companies are selling things as Shetland, but they're not Shetland yarn. Like this is just, apparently someone asked, and this doesn't have any Shetland in it. It's just, I don't know, maybe the way it's spun and maybe the colors they have, they're kind of appropriating that term. So I'm not a huge fan of that. This doesn't have any Shetland in it, which of course is no one's fault, and I'm by in no way faulting anyone. Like I bought this yarn and I love it, but I just think it's important to name things, and this is apparently their unique Shetland, but it doesn't seem to have any Shetland yarn in it. But anyways, it's a woolen yarn. It's, again, it feels very similar to Holst Super Soft and these yarns, and I've just been wanting to try it. So she very kindly wound me off some quantities that I wanted from, I think, 2 different cones, and I'm going to knit a sweater out of it. So that's it for my de-stash. And then this week more yarn arrived because I'm the yarn pig and no one is surprised by that. And it's really funny. Clara, I'm going to name you, and you have no idea how you totally enabled me, but Clara, who actually won last week's giveaway, and I don't think she knows yet, so Clara, please get in touch. She had posted some mittens that she was knitting out of a certain color of Holst Super Soft, and I just fell in love with that photo, and I had to buy yarn for it. And of course I didn't want to knit mittens, I wanted to knit a sweater. So I went onto the Holst webpage, because if you order from Denmark, it's very affordable, by the way. And I couldn't decide, so I got 2 different colorways, which kind of looked like the one that I was looking for. This is all Holst Super Soft. If you don't know, this is the label. And this is 100% wool yarn. 50 grams are 287 meters, so this has great yardage. And you can knit this pretty much at any gauge, so I have knit a couple of sweaters with this and I really enjoy this yarn. And it's also crazy affordable. So I got 4 skeins in the plum colorway, which is this. And it's beautiful. And then I also got 4 skeins in the magenta colorway, because again, it's also stunning and I couldn't really decide which one I wanted. This one is coming out a little bit too light, but you get the idea. So these are going to be sweaters. And then one thing that Holst has been showing a lot on their Instagram is that they have their new Apakah lace base. And what they do is, this is a super light alpaca. This is 400 meters and 50 grams. It's their Titicaca base. And what they do is they hold these yarns together. And by holding this sort of rough woolen yarn together with a strand of lace weight alpaca, it seems to be creating a really nice fabric. So I got myself 2 skeins of this yarn as well to hold together and do something, maybe another no-frills sweater or something like that. In hindsight, I really should have gotten 3 of this to have enough yardage, but I think it should work with 2 as well. And I was just really interested because I've been seeing that done a lot, and everyone is doing the whole mohair thing. And A, I don't want to afford that, and B, I don't know how much I love mohair, but this is something that I could definitely get on board with. It's, for A, it's much cheaper, and B, this does create a halo, but it's not as strong as the mohair. So yeah, I just wanted to try it, so I got that as well. And then last but not least, I love color. If you haven't noticed, I just love looking at color. So I also found this colorway, which is called Marlin. And it's just this beautiful teal. Again, it's kind of, yeah, that's more like it. And I got a sweater's quantity for this as well. And a sweater's quantity is really funny to say with this yarn, because I only need like 200 grams of this. So a sweater quantity is something like 10 bucks. And I love Holst yarn. And no, with any of those things that I just name dropped, I'm not sponsored by anyone. I'm just really just waffling on because I have a huge love of yarn. Oh, and one more thing that I got, which was unnecessary, but it's just so cute. They have these shade packs. So I got a shade pack in the Super Soft, and it's just 5 different colors. This one I actually used for my Branches and Buds sweater, in case you're interested, which I actually wear all the time. I just never wear it on the podcast. And I just thought that, I mean, you could do some amazing color work, gradient thing. Maybe another Strange Brew sweater with these. Like, this would be amazing. Imagine like a yoke, and you start with this as the main color, and then you start with the lightest, and then do some color work while slowly gradiating down the colors. I think this will be amazing. So there we go. A lot of yarn entered my house, but no one is surprised. And also I feel like I knit a lot, so I can do whatever I want. Yeah, except I need to find better storage for my yarn, because my yarn cabinets are kind of overflowing. And I have these plastic bins which I've been using for my sweater quantities, because my buying has definitely changed from like single skeins of yarn to more affordable but larger quantities of sweater yarn. You can't see it, but I've just been stuffing things in there, and that's not really a good solution for the future, so I need to figure something out. Maybe I just need to knit more. Maybe I just need to knit more things. Anyways, that is it for the yarny content of the show. So if you're only staying until here, thank you so much for watching. And if you do want to stick around, it's really funny. The point in time when I start thinking about what I'm going to talk about in my life in general section is this point, like every single time. I say goodbye and then I think, what has been happening? What can I even tell you? Let's talk about the wedding. It's in 3 weeks, less than 3 weeks. But things are going pretty good. This weekend is kind of the last weekend where we're just at home and getting ready and stuff. But I think we're pretty much done. Like, we had a bit of a DJ crisis, but that has all been solved. We even sent out our first dance song and the wedding songs, like just like the playlist of things that we definitely want to be dancing to, all that sort of stuff, and that makes it sound much more traditional than it is. We're not going to really have a first dance. We just have a certain song, and everyone who loves Gilmore Girls as much as I do and loves Lorelai and Luke will know which one. But yeah, we figured that all out. We have sent them our seating charts, and we have figured out who needs vegetarian options and all that stuff, which is really complicated, but that's all done. Next weekend, we're actually going up to my parents' place because my grandpa is turning 90. And I have this huge box of stuff for the wedding, and I'm just going to take all of that already up there. So I'm going to be taking my dress, my shoes. We have like glasses for the candles. We have flower stuff. We have a ton of like small things. And we're going to try to just lug all of that up there already next weekend. So then by the time we actually drive up for our wedding, most of our things will already be there. So that's more like logistical things that we're planning right now, like who's going to be where, who's going to set up the location, and like that sort of stuff. It's not super interesting, but I'm very happy to see that, besides one thing that we really just messed up, but we'll be fine. Besides that, everything is going really well, and all the sort of stress that we had leading up to this has been worth it, because by now we're not really stressed out anymore, and things are more or less all finished. So yeah, that's it for the wedding. I'm of course thinking about what yarn am I going to take for my honeymoon. What do I want to be knitting on the honeymoon? Am I going to do a wedding cast on? Like all the important things, obviously. I've already bribed Kai, because we're going somewhere warm. I'm bribing him to not take many clothes, because we don't need many, and then I can just take all the yarn, which at first he didn't really understand, but I mean, I love knitting, and if I'm ever going to have 2 weeks off, I'm of course going to spend them knitting. Like, there's just no way around that. So yeah, I would say everything is going quite well. Like I said, we're just going to have a very chill weekend. Kai is currently out playing tennis. He's also started a new sport, which is jiu-jitsu. And that means that I have a lot of knitting time, because he's super happy doing that and getting exercise, which is great. And I get more knitting time. I have been running once a week, which isn't great. I was up to 2 or 3 times a week last year, but I'm trying to keep it manageable. So I think 1 run a week is better than not running at all. And it's just trying to keep a bit of a base fitness, because I might be running another 6K race in July. But I'm also very, very looking forward to the point when I have finished the wedding, and I don't need to worry about fitting into my wedding dress anymore. So then I think running will be much more fun again. All right. Besides that, work has been intense, but when isn't it intense? So I only have 2.5 weeks more to go, and I'm counting the days, you guys. So 12 more days of work, and can't wait for that to be done. It's going to be 12 full days, and there's a lot of stuff that still needs to be done. But I had a big success at work this week as well. So all in all, I think everything is going pretty much to plan. And when does that ever happen in my life? Like, that's just insane. Anyways, I think that is pretty much it. So, because we're going up to my parents' place and to my grandpa's 90th birthday next week, I don't really know what's going to happen with podcasting next weekend. There's a chance that we will manage. There's a chance that by the time we get back, it may just be too dark and too stressful. So I'm not making any promises, but what I am doing, or what I'm planning on doing anyways, is you may remember you sent me some questions, and I'm planning to do some question and answer videos, either for next weekend or for when we are on a honeymoon, because obviously that's going to be quite a big break for the podcast. So I'm not sure what's happening, but maybe I will have some kind of video up next weekend. I think so. And then again, I think there's going to be 3 weekends when I will be away thanks to wedding and honeymoon and such. So I'm in the background trying to produce content for that as well, but we'll just see how it goes. I'm not trying to put too much pressure on myself for that. So, with that, I would love to see you over in the Ravelry group, joining our knit-alongs. Of course, you can always talk to me either on YouTube or on Instagram. I always just love hearing from you guys. And until I see you again, which I think will be next week, but I don't know. Have so much fun with your knitting. Have a great weekend. Have a great week. Enjoy some yarn. Let yourself be enabled by me. I take all the blame. So until I see you again, happy knitting, and bye!